So I'm downtown yesterday and I go over to a pizza place downtown. They have tables outside the restaurant. I noticed there's a young lady sitting at one of the tables and she seems pretty upset. She's on the telephone and she's talking to someone, and a couple of guys come running across the street and they're arguing back and forth with this young lady sitting at the table. And I noticed that there are a couple of other people a little further down the street with signs or something. I really wasn't paying much attention. But I did happen to notice the young lady sitting at the table arguing with the guys, or they were pretty much harassing her. And so I kind of walk over a little closer just to kind of see what's going on and try to buffer her situation a little bit. And the guys see me come over and they kind of back off a little bit. And she starts crying. And I say, "You okay?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm fine. These guys are getting on my nerves. They're always getting on my nerves." And she's just really just starts bawling. And so I sit down next to her and I say, "Are you okay?" She says, "Yeah, I'm just tired of it." I'm like, "Why are they bothering you?" And she says, "Because I'm transgender. They're harassing you." And she says, "Yeah, they're getting on my nerves." And so one of the guys come back over and says, "That's a man." And I said, "She's a human being. Get lost." And she's really bawling, and I'm really feeling her energy. And she looks at me, and while I'm sitting next to her, she says, "I'm a human being, not a label. Do you know what it's like when people harass you and call you by a label?" I was like, "Oh my God, I do. As a registered person, I do know what it's like to deal with other people and all they want to do is call you a label. All they want to do is get to the point where they can say sex offender or this or this or this. They don't want to conversate with you. They just want to get to the point where they can start name calling." And she says, "Do you know how it is when I'm just sitting here minding my business and they're harassing me and calling me by a label? I'm a human." And I connected with her on that point. I was holding her like we had been friends for 10 years. I'm like, "I get it. I really do get it. I understand when people would rather not see your humanity so that they can see a label for an agenda's sake." It's like, oh my God, I get it. I feel you. And I told her, I'm a registered person. I know what it's like when people just want to see what they want to see and not see what's obviously before them, a human. But you can be anything but that. And she said, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, are you okay?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm over it." And I asked her what her name was, and she told me. I said, "So you're Italian?" And she says, "Yeah." I said, "Oh, so we can just forget about it." And she's like, "Yeah, forget about it. We're just going to forget about it. We're friends now. Forget about it. It's over with." And I was like, "Cool." And I really connected with her. And I said, "Is somebody coming?" And she said, "Yeah, my boyfriend's coming." And this guy pulled up in a sports car. This guy was huge. He was like 6'4". Got out of a convertible Mustang. And he said, "What's going on? I'm going to put my foot in." I was like, she's like, "No, it's over. It's good. I'm in good shape." And they got in the car and they went around the corner. And I contemplated on what had just happened. I was like, "Lord, thank you for just letting me be here to comfort someone." Because there were times when I was getting the label treatment and I wanted some support. People will invite you on their show or on their podcast, on their channel, Zoom calls. You chime in. They don't really want to have an interaction or a conversation. They really just want to get to the name calling. It gets old. But it's a part of what happens. It's a part of what we do, how we live. But I learned something in that exchange. I learned something very important. As I was sitting there contemplating, I saw the car come back around the corner. And her boyfriend gets out of the car. And he comes over to me. And I stand up and he shakes my hand. And he gives me a hug and he says, "Thanks for being there. She told me what you did." I said, "I appreciate it." And he gave me this real hard hug. It was good for my back because my back was hurting. So, but he gave me this real hard hug, and then he got back in the car and she said, "Bye." And I was like, "Bye." Real upbeat, happy person. And I thought about it. And I thought about a conversation I heard someone having on TV. And they were talking about pronouns. And would you call somebody by a pronoun? In that interaction I had with that young lady, I can tell you it was a beautiful interaction. We connected on something very important. It's humanity. If a word gives somebody their humanity, I'll gladly say the word. To have the feeling I had of that connection on that day with two human beings who didn't even know each other, but for 10 minutes. Because we gave each other two things that are still free: honor and respect.